Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I'm Pinar Barlas, and I'm a co-author on this paper along with my colleagues Kyriakos Kyriakou, Olivia Guest, Styliani Kleanthous, and Jana Otterbacher. The paper is titled To See is the Stereotype, Image Tagging Algorithms, Gender Recognition, and the Accuracy-Fairness Trade-off. As implied, our study looks at the intersection of image tagging algorithms, automated gender recognition, and gender stereotypes. First, I'll briefly explain the motivation for this work through related research. Then I'll explain our methodology before presenting our main findings, and I will conclude by discussing their implications. Image tagging algorithms, or ITAs, are services that describe the contents of an image using tags. They're widely used in both the industry and academia. However, they tend to have little transparency, so researchers have turned to audits in order to understand their behaviors. There are two issues researchers have found which are highly relevant for our research. The outputs of ITAs can exhibit gender stereotypes as well as misgender people in the input images. Previous audits have often used images found in the wild, which can investigate real use cases but doesn't control for image composition. So in a previous work, we used standardized people images with white backgrounds, which, while unrealistic, allowed us to systematically examine the effects of gender and race on the outputs. In this work, we manipulate the backgrounds of the same people images so that we can examine how context may also affect the outputs. Specifically, we investigate whether gender inferences made by the ITAs change when a gender stereotyped context is introduced. In order to achieve this, we first chose background images based on context from literature on gender stereotypes. We then verified that these backgrounds signify gender stereotypes by asking crowd workers to rate each one. We wrote a script to superimpose people images onto those backgrounds, sent the resulting images to the ITAs, and finally prepared the tags for analysis. We conducted both cross-system and within-system audits. That is to say, we compared tags received for an image from different ITAs, as well as comparing tags received from the same ITA for different images. I'll briefly go over our findings from 5 services. We found that most ITAs saw more men or women in a stereotypically gendered context as compared to the baseline. That is, they used a different ratio of masculine to feminine tags on a person's image when a context was added, regardless of whether the gender inference was accurate or not. For some ITAs, gender and background recognition were independent events, but for others, the ITA was more likely to recognize the background when a gender was inferred, demonstrating that gender and background recognition are dependent events. Overall, we had mixed results for this research question because for most services, the recognition accuracy was low for either the background or the gender. So we continued our in-depth analysis with the 2 services, Clarify and Amazon, that were relatively good at recognizing both. We found that gender inferences were more accurate in a stereotype congruent background. For example, men were more likely to receive masculine tags when they appeared in a mechanic's garage than when they appeared in a wedding dress shop. We also found that the descriptions of images depicting some groups change more than others when placed in a context, specifically those depicting women, Black, and/or Asian people. Also, in line with linguistic expectancy bias, descriptions were more abstract when the gender of the person depicted matched the gender stereotype of the context. For example, men may receive more tags describing intangible and enduring characteristics when they are depicted in a mechanic's garage than when they are depicted in a wedding dress shop. In conclusion, we found that gender stereotypes affect how often and how well gender is inferred by ITAs, and often gender stereotypes helped with inferring the correct gender. Considering that systems are often optimized for high accuracy, our findings indicate that this can lead to the perpetuation of stereotypes. Thank you for listening, and please also read the full paper to get more information.